I would like to introduce Andy Piazza, who has an absolutely incredible talk that I'm delighted to have here, and it is all about intelligence being overrated.
Exactly. All right, thanks. I'm Andy Piazza, klrgrz. I'm the head of threat intel at IBM X-Force. Former government contractor, former Army guy, did a bunch of things. So I've been on the vendor side and the defender side of intel, right? So I've been in SOCs doing threat hunting and threat intel. Been on the producer side, and I have a whole separate blog and a rant really about the difference between those parts of intel, what we do on the vendor side, how it needs to be a lot different than what you do on the defender side. Through those conversations with a number of my friends, some of them here heckling me today, I kind of came up with this idea, like, honestly, the way we're doing intelligence mostly in the InfoSec world outside of the government space is bullshit, right? We waste a lot of time and money. Most companies can't use intel properly. What we really need is, sanitized forensics reports. You're not going to do anything with intel assessments 9 out of 10 times. You're not going to change which countries in the world you operate in. It's a $1 billion opportunity in certain countries. You're probably not going to stop operating there if they keep breaching you. So this kind of led to this whole idea that intel really is a fallacy, but I may be biased. That's also a nerd joke for the intel folks that they'll get along. We always talk about our intel, in the intel world, we talk about our mental models and our fallacies and our biases. So the talk title was a play on those words. And but ultimately, what it really comes down to is words matter. So if you retitle the whole talk, it's like words matter. And how we describe things in intel, in InfoSec, it matters because of how organizations consume our intelligence and prioritize their operations and how they think about the problem. So I'm going to talk about two fallacies kind of things that I came up with today. As threat intel, we really talk about the intent and capability of the threat actor, that's what we study. So the first one will kind of be intent focused. Second one will be capabilities focused. But before you trust me, let's take some words from a master spy. All right, so maybe not the one you were thinking of. He's no James Bond, but he's probably the best spy we have. But so the first one is this idea of targeted activity. I don't know about you, but when I hear the word targeted, I think of like super specific, hitting that bullseye. That company, that organization was breached because they had something that threat actor wanted. That completely ignores, like, there's this whole spectrum of targeting. In reality is most, especially in cybercrime space that we see, most targeting that we see is target of opportunity, whether that's just broad-based phishing because they got a big-ass list from the last breach, thanks T-Mobile, don't sue me, or they have a CVE or an exploit for a CVE and they're scanning the internet and just looking for targets. The reality is most of the attacks that we see day-to-day are targets of opportunity. Yet, what happens with intel is we write a report and we say we saw this activity, we say that the company happened to be in the finance industry. We have derivative reporting, right? That means somebody picks up that report and rewraps it into something else, whether that's the news or an internal intel report. That derivative reporting now says financial company was targeted. It was like, whoa, the original report said they received the fish and they happen to be in financial industry, now it's targeted. And we've just like jumped the whole spectrum of targeting, right? And now it's very specific. The other piece that I often see is we do like roll-ups into like threat playbooks or threat actor group profiles. And you'll just see this comma-separated list. This is just one example. Should have my source on here, but I forget. I think I might have pulled these from like the TIE certs, Encyclopedia of Actors. But we'll see these like comma-separated list of industries or sectors. And you notice like they're just side by side for this threat actor group. I think this might have been APT3 if I remember correctly that I pulled from. There's no weight to this. So one of these might have been a target of opportunity. The other one of these industries may have been super targeted because they were trying to go after defense information for the latest R&D into nukes or whatever. We have no idea from this profile. But then when as a company, you're like, what's my threat model, right? Who's likely to target me? Who has the intent and capability? I'm not going to go read through thousands of intel reports from this year or hundreds of thousands over the last 10 years. I'm going to go to this actor profile, figure out who targets my industry from this profile information, find all of the actors, I'm going to rack and stack them and start doing hunting and detection engineering. But if we're doing that from derivative reporting, we've now biased that priority list. We may now be prioritizing detections or protections or hunting for a group that was just a target of opportunity and leave us completely exposed to a group that actually targeted that industry and actually gave a shit about the type of information that industry provided. So ultimately, right, when it comes to targeting and how we describe targeting, words do matter, right? Phrasing. So I'm going to pick on DHS here, CISA, one, because I'm a US Cert alumni as a contractor, so I love them and I want to see them do better. The other reason is I could have used a company report, but I don't want anybody to sue me. Government's less likely to sue an individual. So I just want to show this quick report, and I highlighted some of the words, or boxed out some of the words that kind of highlight the targeting. I mean, right there in the title, right, ransomware activity is targeting the healthcare sector, and healthcare and public health sector, because the federal government's got to name things stupidly. You see all this other language about the targeting, right? We've got intel about this targeting. And then you notice it goes straight into the technical details. Now this report's a couple of PDF pages long. You can go check it out on yourself because you don't know me and you don't trust me. But I promise the rest is technical details. Nowhere in here does the authors show their math of why they said anything about that targeting assessment, right? And there's nowhere we show our work when we say our assessment is based off of this evidence. Now this may be because the FBI was involved and they had some super secret intel, probably not. But the reality is we see this across vendor reporting too. We'll say a big broad threat assessment about targeting and then get into the technical details. If we're gonna do a threat assessment, we need to show our evidence. We need to be able to inform our readers so that they can understand and have confidence in what we're sharing and understand why we made that statement. There's a big difference if we're sitting on the dark web watching ransomware groups talk about hospitals, then I saw a spike in hospital breaches over the last 5 years and I say hospitals must be getting targeted, right? Causation, correlation, and actual intelligence that says threat actors are targeting. That's two different things, right? But we just don't see that in reporting. So as a consumer, I ask you to demand more of us as Intel producers. If you're an Intel producer, I expect you to do better. Like we owe that to our consumers if we're gonna do a threat assessment, that we show our work. Again, that's one example. You could say bullshit. You can go do your own homework. I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm not gonna go through a bunch. So a couple of impacts and recommendations, right? So I talked about the impact of prioritization. Companies spend money when Intel providers produce something. If you're in the federal government or supporting the federal government or care at all what the federal government says, you probably know when CISA publishes something, your CISO is gonna wanna know what you did with it. 100% in the federal space. I've seen that in quite a few private sector companies. If you have that kind of power as a producer, don't publish shit just to publish shit. You are spending a lot of people's money and time to react to what you're publishing. If you have that kind of responsibility or power, right, you have that kind of responsibility too to show your math so people can understand the assessment that you made. So I'm borrowing this assessment formula from the Forensics 578 class, the CTI course from SANS. Katie Nichols also had the Cycle of Cyber Threat Intelligence webcast where she used these slides as well. So that's out on YouTube, you can pull it. But I love this assessment formula that it includes our confidence, our analysis, and our evidence and sources. This is really what we need to get to solve some of these kind of bias problems. If we're gonna make a threat assessment, we need to show our work. And I absolutely love this quote from General Colin Powell. I teach it in a CTI 101 workshop all the time. As an intelligence officer, your responsibility is to tell me what you know, tell me what you don't know, then you're allowed to tell me what you think, but you always keep those three separated. I think as Intel producers and also just InfoSec folks, right, we have a responsibility to communicate things to our executive board who knows nothing about our world. We need to be very clear what we know, what we don't know, and what we think. We are really strongly opinionated in InfoSec. We literally have balls to throw at each other for when we screw up on this stage, right, because we're very opinionated. Our stakeholders don't know that we're telling them what we think if we're not being clear with what we think, right? They don't know the three of these categories in general speak, right? So I'm a huge fan of this quote, and I think this would solve a lot of problems. If we're briefing and we say, healthcare is being targeted and here's why, right? Or I think it's being targeted because we see a spike. That's a huge difference in assessment. All right, so that first one was intent focused. The second one is capabilities focused. This is this idea about historical TTPs and like what threat actors do. I love tracking threat actor TTPs. I really think we need to dial intent and capability more towards capability. I really don't care who's shooting at me, right? I said I spent 2 years in Iraq and never cared who was shooting at me. I just wanted it to stop. That's the true side on the defender side. If you can't put warheads on foreheads, attribution's bullshit. Sorry, in post-cost, I love you, buddy. But honestly, if you can't do offensive operations, flag level, intent level attribution's good enough. Let's focus on TTPs. I love threat actor playbooks. I love MITRE ATT&CK. I think we need to get to that level for Intel in everything we do. What I don't want is people to think that that is a prescribed thing that those threat actors do every time. If you're a red teamer in here, or if you've ever done a CTF, which TTPs did you apply on that challenge? The ones that worked, and probably a bunch that didn't work. You didn't do the only things that you had in your pocket, and that's what I fear we do when we do threat actor playbooks. When we communicate them beyond intel or threat hunters or detection engineers, we start to imply this confidence that we know what the threat actor is going to do next time. That's bullshit. When we are doing forensics and doing that intel report based off a previous campaign, we're just writing down, we're journalists. Don't tell my intel analysts, we're journalists. We're writing down what they did last time, what was permissible in that environment. If the next environment has a different configuration, that shit's not going to work. They're going to change their TTPs. They're going to try different tools. They don't just go, oh, go to the next target. Some actors will, but not the persistent ones, right? So I say, like, threat actor playbooks are huge, but we need to be clear on our language, right? These are the known TTPs. This is what they did last time. What ends up happening is organizations get boxed in and they start thinking that they're 100% or 110% MITRE ATT&CK coverage, right? Thanks, marketing guys. And they think that, like, the work can stop. I don't need more resources. We don't have a problem. And now we've screwed up the intent and targeting piece from the first fallacy. We couple it with this capabilities one, and we think we've got 110% coverage of all the actors who may ever target us, and we're going to be left completely open. The other challenge I've seen is when Intel provides the TTPs for a threat actor working on an incident, I've seen some folks, junior, mid, and even senior, get boxed in that thinking and start looking for those TTPs in our playbook and stop following the evidence of the actual case that's in front of them. The evidence that's in front of you, internal to your organization, is far more important than anything I will ever produce, anything the NSA will ever produce. Intelligence from inside your environment is the most important intelligence. Follow the evidence. Don't let the Intel threat playbook skew you from what you're actually tracking. I've seen that happen. We can help fill in the gaps. You lost logging. You know that we think it's this actor. I can tell you what their next lateral movement techniques may have been, and you can go look for those. That's a cool use of Intel. What's not cool is being like, well, our intel's going path A, but our evidence is going path B. We should probably follow the intel. Andy said it's important, right? Follow the evidence. I've seen too many people like get skewed based off of like the threat playbooks we put together, or the intelligence we put together. See, I talk fast. So again, you get a false sense of security, especially to the folks outside of the security organization, or you've got that lovely, wonderful security director who was hired because they're good at managing people, and they spelled security properly on their resume, but they never actually have done security operations, right? You're going to give them a false sense of coverage if you say we've got all these TTPs covered. They're going to think they're good. They're not going to understand why they need to continue to invest in new detections and monitoring and new capabilities, right? So the words we do express to folks matter, especially if it's outside of our circle. So recommendations on how to fix it. Obviously use accurate language, like I've said. You know, we need to use intelligence to inform the investigation, not to steer it away from things. Again, we call that like confirmation bias within the intel world. And always challenge your assumptions. So within the intel world, we have these things called structured analytical techniques, or the SATs, not that horrible test some of you did in high school. Structured analytical techniques are models, like data models that we use to really confirm or deny like our findings. One of my favorite, there's a bunch of them, one of my favorites is the key assumptions check. This is a great one for IR, it's a great one for intel in general. The key assumptions check is really just throughout the investigation, stopping and going, what do I know, why do I know it, and is it still true, right? Did I get new evidence in this case that contradicted what we originally thought? I don't know how many times I've started an investigation, thought it was gonna be, you know, bullshit like coin miner or something, and it turned out to be a real problem, or vice versa. Those key assumption checks help you stop and think through, what do I know, what do I not know, and what do I think about this? Do those throughout your phases. Anytime you're in an IR and you're gonna rotate to the next phase of IR, recheck your key assumptions check. Look at that evidence, because we should be showing our work, and ask yourself, is this piece still true? That will be huge as you're doing you know, your threat modeling. It'll be huge if you're doing incident response. It's huge as you're doing detection engineering, right? I gave you a threat playbook for a group, and it took you 6 months to write detections or hunts for all those TTPs. Did we update it since the last time you asked for a copy, right? Maybe we have new TTPs for you to hunt on. So just like always, you know, be a hacker. Challenge bullshit, check the facts, and ask, you know, for people to show their work. You know, one more great quote. Okay, fine, whatever, we're not doing phrasing. I'm an Archer nerd. So real quick recap, you know, words absolutely do matter. You know, read original reporting whenever you can. If you're reading reporting and it says, according to so-and-so, pivot to that original report if you can, if it's freely available, and check that out and give that a read. One, that original report instead of that derivative report will hopefully show its work. It'll also help prevent any of that skew that you get of somebody doing derivative reporting and maybe dropping out some of the things the original author thought was important about targeting. So always go to the original report whenever you can. If you're on the producer side, show your work, show your work, show your work. Bunch of acknowledgments. Of course, Katie Nichols, if you want to get into Intel, you're in Intel, check out all of her blogs, all of her videos. She has good people. Shout out to my lovely X-Force peers who keep me sane, and my buddy Muscle Nuts up front, who was one of my soldiers back in the day when I was a mean NCO, and he still hangs out with me like 15 years later, and he's been supporting me through a bunch of stuff. Muscle Nuts is my nickname for him. It's not his actual handle, but it should be. I knew that would earn that one. And one of my favorite quotes, without data, you're just another person with opinion, right? So that's huge. Any questions, or I'll just keep ranting. We're coming down in here in the last few minutes. What's up? Yeah, so you're a consumer of Intel, right? Whether it's internal or a vendor. Yeah, I'm working it in. How do you get better Intel from your sources, right? Whether you're, again, if it's an internal Intel team, have a conversation with them. I guarantee 9 out of 10 of them will want to get better, so give them that feedback. If it's a vendor, you're paying for it, demand more of them. The same thing, here's another rant, and it kind of goes along this. I really wish we could get to a point in security where companies don't need detection engineers. Like, that blows my mind. Like, your security tools should be able to detect shit. Like, we should not have to do detection engineering. We should demand more of our EDRs, our SIEMs, and all of our security platforms, right? It's the same thing with Intel. Like, demand more. Like, I've been in organizations, they don't talk to their vendors. Like, no matter what, it all goes through the contract officer. And I've been in other organizations like, hey, we had a breach. This malware happened. We had no alerts from your tool. Here's a sample. And they're like, we'll get you new rules. And, like, companies are happy to fucking update their products, or they're not going to be in business for very long. So demand more of your producers. Internal team, hopefully they want to play ball, and you don't have bad company politics. But I bet if you talk directly to the analysts, I'll say on the flip side, I've been in like an Intel analyst supporting SOCs in the past. If your IR team doesn't reach out to the Intel team during a breach, that's a you problem, not a them problem. You haven't shown your value to them and how you can support their IR so they can move faster. If they think they are going to engage you, you're going to slow them down. That is an Intel problem, not an IR problem. You need to show your value as an Intel producer. If you're doing big strategic threat assessments within a company, you should probably stop. Your SOC is your decision makers, not your executive board. They're doing security shit every day. Those should be your primary consumer. I told you to get me on a soapbox after that question. The other one, I'll say now because I didn't work it into the slides, but threat hunting, I love it. It's one of the most fun I've ever done in a job until you find something that it's a bad day. It's not proactive. No matter how many times we try to define threat hunting as proactive, the shit's already happened. You're still reacting. Sorry, that's another Intel fallacy. I talk really fast. What else we got? Go ahead. Truly proactive is actually like security engineering and architecture and having secure by design networks and tools. That's securing your shit before bad guys are coming at you, or bad gals, because some of them too, is actually proactive response. Detection engineering, I would argue, can be a proactive thing, but the reality is almost everything we're doing on the security ops side is in reaction to what threat actors have done somewhere, whether it was our environment or not. To truly be proactive, we need to be investigating our network paths and where like those attack paths are, and do we have visibility in there, identifying where those gaps are and getting better visibility. Oh man, no, hunting is so there's another problem, whole definition of hunting. First off, if you're doing hunting outside of your perimeter and not inside of your internal logs, that's called intel collection. Hunting is what you do inside of the data set you generate. If you're looking for gaps, yeah, that is a phase of hunting, right, is to see what our visibility is. That's why hunting, I think, has really been important, not only to find stuff that we missed, but hunters can then find like, hey, we want to do we wanted to see if somebody was abusing our DNS server, and we are not getting any of those logs, right? That can definitely help, but that's ultimately not the point of hunting. The point of hunting is to go find things that have happened. To me, like, really a security review of your organization and having a outside in or a purple team, those types of things are like, what is our architecture? Where are our gaps? What are all those things the business unit connected to and didn't tell the SOC about? That to me is proactive work. But I'm just one asshole on the internet, so I could be wrong. All right, we got one at the mic. Go ahead.
All right, hello. What are the top 3 things defenders can use from yearly threat intel reports that are published by the large threat intelligence companies? And what do you think is the biggest missed opportunity from those reports from those companies?
Oh, that's my favorite. Yeah, so I think the number one thing that you can use from intel reports, like, I don't know, IBM X-Force maybe, is the forensics part of the data. So many people want to know who's targeting us. The number one question we often get from clients is, can we get like curated intel? The only way you do that is with internal threat analysts. From your vendors, you're never going to get curated intel. That's a fallacy in itself. It's bullshit. What you really want to be looking for is who's targeting our industry and why. That first, kind of fallacy I talked about is we need to get better at showing what the targeting is and what we think about and know about the targeting. And then the other piece is we need to get the TTPs in there. MITRE attack numbers are cool, but they should have strings next to them. I will give huge credit to CISA for their work here of actually showing the TTP and explaining what they saw in that specific case. We need to be getting to that side from the intel. And with that, I got the big red stop sign and the middle finger. So thank you. I'll be hanging out, and I have klrgrz stickers if you want some.